Hello there. My name is Gary Albin. I work for Whole Education. I'm delighted that Whole Education has a partnership with the Cabot Learning Federation, particularly around your wonderful work supporting pupils with SEND. I'm here just to take a few minutes of your time as you sit in subject groups, just to be thinking about the role of adaptive teaching and high quality teaching generally in meeting the needs of learners. I'll end with a few questions that I hope are really helpful as you discuss these things in subject groups going forwards. Just as a reminder, Whole Education is a national not-for-profit organisation. We work with schools, multi-academy trusts and others up and down the country who are committed to a whole education, holistic approaches to meeting the needs of all pupils, and particularly through the work we do with Cabot and others, pupils with special educational needs. Okay, so if we think about a pupil and start with them, lots of the work, lots of the conversations around SEND are about things that need to happen, about annual reviews and EHCPs and making external referrals to specialists, doing other work around SEND. Fundamentally, I think we need to never forget that the most important things for a pupil with SEND between the hours of 8:30 and 3:30 while they're in school are going to be them coming across teachers who are confident and capable in meeting needs of pupils with SEND, where the leadership work of a school is about supporting and growing and boosting confident and capable leadership, and fundamentally every staff member feeling a confidence, a capability and ownership around the provision they might put in place for pupils with SEND. And that's very much the theme of how I'll spend this few minutes just with this short video now. So when we think about confident, capable delivery of lessons for pupils with SEND in classrooms, I find the best teaching I see, the most positive, inclusive teaching, the teachers that pupils value the most are often not those who are working in 100 different strategies all at once, multiple different individual level strategies for every single pupil with SEND. Of course, we need bits of this, we need to be informed by individual differences, but we can do better than that as well, of course. The best teaching I see, and I said Whole Education is committed to networks, well-functioning networks where people are willing to share generously, be open about challenges, be open to share when things are going well. The best practice I see is often not based on 100 things all happening at once, but actually is underpinned by teachers and others having positive attitudes towards inclusion, as I, by the way, have only ever seen positively done across Cabot schools. Number two is where we see that we bring the right version of ourselves to work every day in relation to pupils with SEND, which is positive and sees the whole child and believes in those pupils, understands them, reflects on their changing needs over time, of course, and where teachers are sharing what's working for me at a given time across perhaps subject networks, for example. The best teaching I see is often taking this kind of automatic doors analogy, where if we see those automatic doors, they're quite useful for that man and that lady as they come out of the supermarket because they're carrying heavy shopping or they've already got their hands in their pockets. But if the next person coming out is a wheelchair user, has an invisible disability like a chronic fatigue syndrome, or has a profile of OCD where they don't like touching surfaces in public spaces, don't find that comfortable, then actually the automatic doors become essential, or at least really important. So the best teaching I see, to extend the analogy a bit, takes that automatic doors approach often, where it builds in things that are really, really useful, maybe even essential for many pupils with SEND, but actually they're broadly useful for all. They're harmful to no one. It harms no one to use a ramp, for example, but it makes the ultimate difference to a wheelchair user. And then when we're thinking about building confidence and capability around SEND, sometimes seeing these labels as the main thing we're looking at for pupils doesn't make us feel confident, doesn't make us feel capable. Often it's these things that we can feel confident and capable around, and those things are barriers to learning, they're needs, they're things that we all recognize, that we can all put things in place without only waiting until an external report tells us what to do, without only following the strategies on a pupil passport. Actually, we can recognize those things in our learners and are all can provide confident, capable responses based on what we see. Okay, so these are some of the things that I pick up as some of the best practice I see in relation to supporting pupils with SEND. When we think a bit more specifically about classroom teaching, we know there's a bit of a silver bullets thing around SEND. What's the thing that's going to suddenly remove this challenge? And of course, you know, it would be lovely if there was one, wasn't it? But We know that that's not the case. There is no silver bullet here. And when the EEF looked at a full comprehensive evidence review, an evidence review that involved 4.8 million children, what does the best available research evidence, published studies tell us, might work, might be useful for pupils to Ascend, based on real children in real schools with real additional special needs? They found these things here, which does fit into that automatic doors analogy, I think, because it's things that are broadly useful for everyone, but particularly useful for many pupils to Ascend and harmful for no one. We would look at those things there and go, A, they're about good teaching at their core, and B, if we get it right and embed them for pupils to Ascend, we're providing something that's broadly useful to all, particularly useful for some, and harmful for no one. So if that's right, then that teaching is one of the most important levers we can pull, particularly for pupils to Ascend. If the importance of having a good teacher is important for everyone, but really important for disadvantaged pupils, then the way we sort of conceptualize that in England is through this thing, adaptive teaching, isn't it? So adaptive teaching, the best sort of articulation of adaptive teaching I've seen is that 4-part process that starts with, before a lesson, anticipating what the barriers might be to pupils' learning. We then, before the lesson, plan well to address those barriers if indeed we're right, if indeed those barriers are there in class. And then during the lesson, we use the formative assessment things that we've probably already built in to what we do to make sure we can get a really good sense during a lesson of who needs what, who needs a bit more or something a bit different. And then we make adaptations accordingly. That, again, we've probably factored into our planning, but we make in the moment as and when one or some or all pupils are struggling to get what we need them to be able to know or to be able to do. And I should just point out that it overlaps really nicely, as far as I'm concerned, with this 5-a-day approach that I just shared a moment ago, because if we were anticipating barriers, we're probably thinking, what are the bits of scaffolding that might be useful there, and how might I structure my lesson so that any barriers are sort of known about and we can do something about structuring, perhaps within that explicit instruction model, starting with teachers, teachers leading that learning, and stages moving from guided practice towards independent practice. And as part of the plan, we're probably thinking, how can I make this learning memorable and sticky and meaningful to all through cognitive strategies and metacognitive strategies? We're probably thinking, in my lesson, in that explicit instruction model, I'm building in good formative assessment so I know that we can move towards greater independence. And if I need to make some adaptations in my lesson, that might be that we have a verbal, visual, or written scaffold. It might be that we create a temporary group of the 1, 2, 3, 4 pupils who aren't quite there yet, come to the front table, we're going to look at this again. And it could be that we embed technology in some way as part of that adaptations for pupils who need it. So this is not a different framework as far as I see it. So I'm going to leave you now with just a few questions, if that's okay, relating to 3 of these 4 stages. So that first one, in terms of planning to address those barriers, it might be useful to discuss in subject teams, how is adaptive practice built into your planning? What things are happening before lessons to make sure that that adaptive teaching kind of approach can be taken in lessons? In thinking about formative assessment within your subject, and these things are often subject specific, aren't they? What are the go-to forms of formative assessment? How do you know, when teaching your subject, whether one, some, or all pupils know what you need them to know or can do what you need them to be able to do before they move on to the next bit of learning? And then what are those adaptations when you see that through good formative assessment, one, some, or all pupils need something a bit additional or a bit different? What are those options there? How do you adapt? Perhaps through scaffolding, flexible grouping, using technology, or something else entirely. What are your adaptations? What are your options there? If anything in this short video isn't clear or needs a bit of expanding or doesn't feel quite right, my email's there. You're very welcome to get in touch. Thank you for your time. I'll leave you with those questions up on the screen. I hope they provide some useful prompts for discussion there. Thank you very much.